we're all tied up here at one apiece as we head to the bottom of the 10th. The Blue Sox need to put one across to keep their championship hopes alive. And we've got something cooking here. Runners on the corners now with 2 out. Can they do it again, folks? Westerman up at the plate with a chance to win it. And there's a liner smash to the right side, and it's through! Ladies and gentlemen, as they've proven time and again, don't count these Sox out yet. We've got ourselves a tied series, and we'll see you tomorrow for the championships.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd.
For fans cheering at the ballpark on September 10th, 1952, few could have anticipated that their team would again have a chance to bring a championship title home to the city. The season had started off bright and expectations were high, but the ball club had all but limped to the finish line. Injuries, costly managerial decisions, and discord between the players and leadership contributed to their drop in the standings. When 6 members walked off the team in late August and early September in a player strike just days before the end of the regular season, the club's chances at clinching a consecutive playoff championship seemed bleak. After all, they'd lost a third of their roster and were reduced to just 12 players, a dutiful dozen. Giving up would have been easy, but as we all know,
there's no crying in baseball!
The women of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League were accustomed to adversity and relished the opportunity to compete at the same level as male professional baseball players. Showcasing their determination, grit, and innate athletic skill, the South Bend Blue Sox were prepared to leave it all on the field again for a chance at the 1952 title. I'm Justin Clark, and this is Talking Hoosier History. Though it would be 20 years until the passage of Title IX in 1972, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in federally funded educational or athletic programs, the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, or AAGPBL, set an early precedent for women in professional sports. The league showed that when they had the opportunity, female athletes could be as competitive and entertaining as men. Yet, it also underscored that societal expectations of femininity were, and continue to be, imposed on female athletes. The South Bend Blue Sox and other teams of the league serve as an example of women succeeding in fields dominated by men, while reminding us of the work still needed today to help achieve greater gender equality in sports. Many of us are familiar with the quote, "There's no crying in baseball," from the popular movie A League of Their Own. The 1992 film put the AAGPBL back in the public eye, 4 decades after its founding. While the movie highlighted the history of the league, with some Hollywood liberties of course, it's important to note that though it was among the first, if not the first, organized professional women's league to play baseball, women have been playing the sport since at least the 1860s. Baseball, since its early roots in America in the mid-18th century, has been considered a man's sport by most. After developing into a professional game in the 19th century, it was dubbed too strenuous for women, the long base paths, heavy bat, overhand pitching, etc., etc. So women who played in the late 19th and early 20th century faced social criticism for their foray into this masculine domain. Despite this, women continued playing on barnstorming teams and at women's colleges on the East Coast in the post-Civil War era through the turn of the 20th century, but not in particularly high numbers, at least officially. In the 1880s in urban areas, the game of baseball was modified to accommodate smaller spaces such as indoor gyms and city playgrounds, which led to the development of softball. As softball evolved by the turn of the century, women were pushed into the sport and away from baseball. Softball grew dramatically through recreational and industrial leagues during the Great Depression, and although generally acceptable for women in the pre-World War II era, female players were often deemed masculine. Time magazine described female softballers as, quote, cavorting U.S. tomboys, girls who can pitch, bat, field grounders, otherwise perform like a reasonable facsimile of the male, unquote. This widespread popularity of softball set the stage for a ready-made pool of athletes for the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. These women knew how to play, and they were good. Very good.
If I pitch, can you catch? Will you hold the ball when you step?
America began contributing towards the World War II effort and then officially joined the war after the bombing of Pearl Harbor in December 1941.
Millions of women who have never before been employed in industry are now enlisted in the nation's labor forces. They are stepping in wherever they are needed to do a man's job.
More women entered the workforce, finding new employment opportunities in jobs traditionally held by men, who had taken up arms to fight. This included professional baseball.
Do you know the game? I mean, baby, do you know the game?
Baseball was America's national pastime and provided release from the stressors of the Depression and war years. As the American economy shifted to wartime production in the late 30s and early 40s, industrial recreation gained even greater importance for war workers and spectators who wanted to enjoy wholesome entertainment.
Baseball is back again. All Washington is out, including the President of the United States.
In January 1942, President Roosevelt stated,
I honestly feel that it would be best for the country to keep baseball going. Everybody will work longer hours and harder than ever before. They ought to have a chance for recreation and for taking their minds off their work.
Nevertheless, there were still concerns that a manpower shortage could affect professional baseball in the spring of 1943 and leave ballparks empty. Not willing to wait around and see what happened, Philip K. Wrigley, chewing gum magnate and owner of the Chicago Cubs, stepped up to the plate. He decided that professional women's softball was the answer. When it became clear, though, that men's professional baseball would not be curtailed by a manpower shortage, instead of abandoning his ideas of women's professional softball, Wrigley shifted gears slightly. According to historian Mary Fidler,
Wrigley fashioned the league's objectives to complement the war effort in the mid-sized industrial communities that supported its teams.
Wrigley founded the All-American Girls Softball League as a non-profit organization. He explored potential host cities ranging from Detroit to Cincinnati to Gary, but the final cities selected to host league teams were South Bend, Indiana, Racine and Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Rockford, Illinois. These cities had been hotbeds for women's softball since the 1930s, were mid-sized war production cities, and were conveniently located within a 100-mile radius of Wrigley's base of operations in Chicago. Wrigley offered a previously unimaginable opportunity, a chance for female athletes to play professional ball. He used his already established scouting network to recruit the very best players from across the US and Canada, eventually even recruiting Latin American players. The league held final tryouts in Chicago and then distributed players to each of the 4 new teams. The original South Bend team included women hailing from the state of Florida to the city of Chicago to the province of Saskatchewan, and a little bit of everywhere in between. Furthermore, this was a paid opportunity, and the league paid well. Salaries started at $45 a week, which, according to contemporary newspapers, was more than the average stenographer or factory girl gets, and far above the average Class D minor leaguer, and ranged up to $85 a week, which was on par with players in the top minor leagues. And to drum up further publicity, the league hired former male major league stars as team managers. At the league's onset, the women played a hybrid game that fell somewhere between softball and baseball. The game continued to evolve throughout the league's 12-year history, eventually becoming baseball.
Like many another sport, baseball has made way for the ladies. They train like men for professional games which draw 1 million paid admissions every year. From coast to coast and even from Canada and Cuba comes the cry, "Slide, Sadie, slide!"
Early on, the women used the underhand pitch and a typical softball, but batted with Louisville Slugger baseball bats. Each team played with 9 players, allowed leadoffs and steals, and lengthened the base paths and pitching distance. By 1948, overhand pitching was implemented, and in the final season, a regulation-sized baseball. The league constantly evolved in its name and structure. In later years, it has been labeled the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. Here we will just say the league to avoid confusion. Wrigley was of the mind that for society to fully accept women's professional baseball and to shed stereotypes of women softball players, he would have to highlight the players' femininity. The women would be promoted as All-American Girls. Indeed, one United Press article described the new league as beauty at the bat, pulchritude on the pitcher's mound, and glamour in the gardens when the nation's first professional girls softball league opens its initial season. As Fiddler explains,
Wrigley attempted to achieve this goal by soliciting the design of a special feminine uniform, by employing team chaperones, by establishing player conduct rules similar to those in vogue for women on college campuses, and by educating players in the finer points of feminine charm.
But you don't need to go to college to learn that.
This meant in the early years that players attended charm school
Any girl can do a lot to get the most out of her looks.
and were required to abide by such league rules as always appear in feminine attire when not actively engaged in practice or playing a ball. Boyish bobs are not permissible, and lipstick should always be on.
Lipstick is your exclamation point. Be sure that your lipstick harmonizes with your rouge and your nail polish. And check with any reds in your costume to see that everything is in key. Be sure you put your best face forward.
These rules of conduct were established as a form of what sociologist Jan Felshen has dubbed apologetic behavior. This is a term used frequently when discussing women's sport in the 20th century and describes the compensatory behavior required of women when they engage in a social transgression, i.e., since women were engaging in the traditionally masculine sport of baseball, they must apologize or compensate for this by emphasizing their femininity.
Gene bunts it, the squeeze is on. Tibby Ison slides home with a run and a nicely bruised leg. Better a bruise than long pants, eh, gals?
They did this through their skirted uniforms, the strict codes of conduct, and highlighting their traditional feminine accomplishments, such as reading, horseback riding, and scrapbooking. Mina Costin, a staff writer for the South Bend Tribune, described the new professional players as such.
Time was when girls softball players were thought of as brawny, tough-looking, and acting babes who couldn't do anything but heave a ball and swing a bat. But the members of South Bend's new girls team are ladies, in appearance and character, without exception.
She followed with a detailed description of the new star pitcher, Margaret Sunny Berger.
Sunny is a small, sun-tanned, blue-eyed blonde who looks like a college co-ed.
After describing Berger's collegiate background and hobbies, which of course included her devotion to the Red Cross, Costin concluded the article with the following.
There you have Miss America 1943. No, she's not a bathing beauty. She's a softball player, and a darn good one, too.
Although men's baseball integrated in 1947, the league never did. Despite several black female players trying out for the South Bend team in the early 1950s, sources suggest that black women baseballers did not fit within the All-American standards set by the league, and none were ever officially on a team roster. Wrigley emphasized white middle-class femininity and indeed embedded it into every aspect of his organization. It was couched in language surrounding respectability, but race and sexuality certainly played into it. In this instance, respectability meant white and heterosexual. Historically, while much has been made of this emphasis on the players' femininity, what is less often covered is their stellar athleticism. So let's jump into our team at hand here, the South Bend Blue Sox, and their long road to back-to-back championships.
Okay, gals, play ball.
In the spring of 1943, South Bend, with a population just over 100,000, was booming with its $13 million in defense contracts, shedding any last vestiges of the Depression era. Corporations like Studebaker, a local automaker, and Bendix Aviation had shifted production to meet wartime needs. When the 15 new professional ball players assigned to the Blue Sox team stepped off the South Shore L from Chicago into their new host city, they were greeted by South Bend Mayor Jesse Pavey and other local civic leaders. The city was glad to have them, and the women were thrilled to be there. The Fort Wayne Daisies, the only other team from the Hoosier State, joined the league in 1945.
Two teams are working out, the Fort Wayne Daisies and the Racine Bells.
While the AAGPBL was founded, in part, in response to the Second World War, the league peaked in the post-war period and remained in operation until after the 1954 season, because of its roots within host cities such as South Bend and Fort Wayne. Community support for the league and their new team remained strong in South Bend. Local industrial, business, civic, and fraternal organization leaders expressed interest in supporting the team and contributed financially as guarantors to ensure the team's stability and success for over a decade. The South Bend Blue Sox began their tenure at Bendix Field, but relocated to the stadium at Playland Park for the 1946 season. Playland was centrally located, offered more seating, including a section of 2,600 covered seats and a brand new lighting system. Attendance dramatically increased over the next couple of seasons. Local newspaper coverage, or the lack thereof, could make or break a team, but the South Bend Tribune certainly aided the Blue Sox. The Tribune reported on all their home and away games and provided box scores for the Girls Pro League, just as they did with men's professional baseball. This positive, regular coverage spurred attendance and helped develop a loyal following among residents. Despite several solid seasons of play and a tie for the pennant in 1949, league and playoff championships continued to elude the Blue Sox. That all changed in 1951. Led by all-star pitcher Gene Fout and a strong veteran core, the team knew they had the talent to go the distance, and they set to work proving it. The Sox had a good start, but finished in third in the first part of the season. They went on a tear in the second half. In late July, the team won an impressive 11 games in a row, including a perfect game by Fout, the first of two she threw in her remarkable career. To date, there have been a total of 23 perfect games in Major League Baseball history. No pitcher in the league has ever thrown more than one. Paul Neville of the South Bend Tribune reported on Fout's 1951 gem in the July 22nd issue of the paper, praising her as a sturdy gal with a lot of heart, a fast ball that hops, and a curve that breaks off like a country road. In August, the Blue Sox outdid themselves, winning 16 in a row. The consistent, sizzling play by all members of the team propelled them to the top of the standings and saw them clinch their first outright league championship in 9 seasons. South Bend defeated Fort Wayne in the first round of the 51 playoffs, but fell 2 games behind to the Rockford Peaches in the title series. According to the South Bend Tribune,
it looked like a hopeless proposition, trying to win 3 straight from Rockford, which was on a 9-game victory streak of its own.
Needing a win, they handed the ball to their ace.
It's an old story with the South Bend Blue Sox, but they're counting on Gene Fout to pull them out of another jam at Playland Park.
Fout and the team battled back, as they so often did, coming from behind in each of the last 3 games to win their first playoff championship. It was a long time coming, and the city was thrilled.
The 1951 Blue Sox were a team that improved steadily as the season progressed. Their position in the standings at the end of the first half and then their top-rung spot after the second half showed that they learned and put their new knowledge into use. They've brought great credit upon themselves and South Bend, and for that we can only say congratulations!
On the surface, South Bend looked primed to compete for the championship title again in 1952. The team boasted a strong roster that played well with each other, but off the field, tensions and outside pressures mounted, threatening to disrupt their work. Contract conflicts became a major point of contention. Several players demanded higher pay to reflect their experience and talent, but the league, already struggling financially, often refused to budge. The frustrations over pay cast a shadow over the season. The Blue Sox also learned they would be without fan-favorite shortstop Sinead Shoo Worth for the year when she announced that she was pregnant, another aspect of the AAGPBL that male leagues did not have to contend with. Added to this was a complicated set of player and leadership dynamics that the Blue Sox began to confront in 1951 and were exacerbated in the 52 season. In January 1951, the Sox hired a new manager, former minor leaguer Carl Winch. In addition to his role with the team, Winch just so happened to be Fout's husband and the father of their young son. The relationship made things tricky for Fout. Though Winch reportedly never talked baseball with her at home, teammates were hesitant to confide in her during disputes with him, thus isolating Fout. Despite these challenges, the Blue Sox started the 1952 season strong. It looked like it would be a Hoosier battle through and through while they sought to fend off the Fort Wayne Daisies. Fout looked past the strained relationships and her husband's inability to connect with his players and continued her dominance on the mound. But small fissures pulled at the team's seams. In early June, Winch let frustrations get the best of him and benched Charlene Shorty Pryor, the second baseman, and then abruptly suspended first baseman Janet Pee Wee Wiley for supporting Pryor and allegedly talking back to him. Winch himself was suspended later that month when he challenged a call on the field and got into a brawl with the umpire. Some Blue Sox joined the melee, underscoring the physical aspect that was common in both male and female professional leagues. It was another distraction for the team during their close race with Fort Wayne. Winch continued to make changes to the lineup as the season progressed, much to the dismay of the team. These were experienced ballplayers who understood the strengths and weaknesses of their roster and weren't afraid to question his calls. Finally, in late August, tensions erupted. Winch called on Shorty Pryor to pinch run in the ninth inning of a close game against the Kalamazoo Lassies. Pryor, who had already taken off her spikes, took some time getting out to the base. The delay angered the short-tempered Winch, who suspended her with just days left in the regular season. Several Blue Sox players appealed to Winch to reconsider, stating that they needed the leading base stealer and star hitter in the lineup. Winch refused to change his mind and challenged those who questioned him. Siding with their teammate, 5 additional players walked off the team. It was a devastating blow to a group that had struggled down the stretch and led to a reporter dubbing those remaining the Dutiful Dozen. South Bend ended the season in second, losing the league championship to their Hoosier rivals, Fort Wayne. Reduced to 12 players, few fans gave the Blue Sox any chance at winning it all for a second consecutive year. Still, the team quickly defeated Grand Rapids in the first round and met Rockford again in the championship series. The Blue Sox lost the first 2 games, but played the latter under protest, arguing that Rockford had shortened the distance to the right field fence below the league requirement. The protest proved to be a crucial point in the series, and the final ruling went in the Blue Sox favor. While clinching a win in Game 3, South Bend learned that the 2 teams would replay the previous one, thus evening the series at 1 apiece. Another Rockford win gave the Peaches the edge. Once again, South Bend found itself in a must-win position. Winch decided to save Fout for the deciding game, and went with Janet Rumsey on the mound against Rockford's ace, Rose Gayshock, already a 2-time All-Star by this point. It was a nail-biter that saw the determined Blue Sox prevail 2-1 in 10 innings. The South Bend Tribune reported,
Out-hit, outfielded, out-pitched, but never out-fought. That's the Blue Sox story as the defending American Girls Baseball League champions trek off to Freeport, Illinois today for the final game of 1952.
The Blue Sox handed the ball to Fout and let her work her magic. With a 20-2 record on the regular season and a stunning .93 ERA, she again demonstrated that she was among the best to ever play in the league. The Sox gave her an early lead with a run in the first, but it was a 3-run third that helped tip the odds in the Blue Sox favor for the first time in weeks. Fout, a former batting champion, assisted not only on the mound, but at the plate too, belting out 2 triples, tallying 2 RBIs and scoring a run herself after stealing home. Down 6-1 in the 9th inning, Rockford made one last push and rallied for a couple runs before Fout knocked the last out. With the 6-3 win, the Blue Sox unexpectedly brought another championship title home to South Bend and showed the country that women possess the same drive to compete and succeed as men in the pro leagues.
Today, the Blue Sox again reign as league champions. There is no attempt here to say that this South Bend team of a dozen players is the best in the league or that girls' baseball is the world's greatest sport. But there is space here for a tribute to Winch and his girls, who won the league playoff on just one basis alone: determination, the will to win. These are but the trite phrases of athletic banquet speakers, but nonetheless apt and fitting in describing the success story of the Blue Sox.
We're the members of the All-American League. We come from cities near and far.
Within the long history of women's sports, there is also a long history of society demanding apologetic behavior. Women athletes have consistently done whatever it takes to compete, whether that's playing baseball in a skirt with lipstick on or participating in a beauty contest at halftime of a basketball game. They've had to engage in this behavior, willingly or not, because American society has deemed femininity and athleticism at odds. Female athletes, amateur or professional, have had to constantly negotiate these components of their identities to make the case that they too deserve an equal chance to play. Because sports like baseball have been part of the masculine realm, men never have to justify their masculinity in the same way. Gains for women have been made since the AAGPBL players' time, particularly with the passing of Title IX in 1972 and the subsequent boom in women's sports at the high school and collegiate levels. But sporting equality continues to evade women athletes. Professional women athletes are not paid anywhere near equal to male professional athletes. They do not get the same media coverage or endorsement deals, and as the most recent NCAA March Madness basketball tournament highlighted, access to facilities and equipment remain vastly inequitable. Despite this, women athletes continue to achieve greatness, and sometimes even perfection. Just as Fout excelled at the mound with her 2 perfect games for the South Bend Blue Sox, Hope Troutwine, a pitcher for the softball team from North Texas University, pitched the first ever truly perfect game in NCAA D1 history in April 2021, striking out every single batter that stepped to the plate over the course of 7 innings. Just as in 1952, women athletes come to play. They continue to fight for the right that one day it'll be on a level playing field. Once again, I'm Justin Clark, and this has been Talking Hoosier History. Talking Hoosier History is a production of the Indiana Historical Bureau, a division of the Indiana State Library. To view the historical sources, a full transcript, and links to the articles mentioned in this episode, visit blog.history.in.gov and click Talking Hoosier History at the top. This episode of Talking Hoosier History was researched and written by IHB historian Casey Pfeiffer and IHB Deputy Director Dr. Michelle Marino. Production and sound engineering by IHB historian Jill Weiss Simmons. Quotations for this episode were read by Casey Pfeiffer, Michelle Marino,
and yours truly.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with an episode of Giving Voice. In the meantime, find us on Facebook and Twitter at the Indiana Historical Bureau, and remember to subscribe, rate, and review Talking Hoosier History wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening. To the Blue Sox team. That's hard to say.